All right, welcome back. Hope you found that exercise enlightening. Again, these are influential elements. So if we're missing certain pieces, this is definitely something we got to think about as we integrate, right? So keep that sheet handy, because as we start to get into the mapping and looking at things, we're going to figure out how much of the influential aspects can we integrate into our marketing. Okay, so I just got a few more kind of these power concepts or thoughts before we dig into kind of piecing some things out. So let me just share with you this idea again. I know some of the stuff's pretty fundamental, but we don't think about this as we're doing things, right? We're just trying to be busy doing certain work. And so, we're trying to create advocates. You really can't get an advocate until you get somebody who's actually bought from you. They've engaged with you. They've seen some things, right? So how do we actually go ahead and get a conversion? How does a conversion actually happen? Well, if you think about it, it actually only happens at the center of three ideas. So the first is demand, right? Do I want what you have to offer, right? Do I want it? Do I have a desire for it? And sometimes that means we have to create desire, right? We have to actually create demand. The second piece is trust. If I don't trust that you can deliver, I could want what you have, but I'm not going to trust you. I'm not going to do it. And the next thing is the attainability, the ability to attain it. Now that could be, I think at first glance, you think about financially, right? Can I financially attain it, right? So for instance, like I might want a Ferrari. I may trust that Ferrari makes a great vehicle, but I might not have the ability to attain it. But also sometimes it's more like, hey, do I have the technology? Do I have the systems? Do I have the access? Even for instance, this live workshop. We tried to do it live on Facebook. Some people came back and said, oh, I'm not on Facebook, I need something else. So we had to add the Zoom element, right? So is there any barriers to people being able to attain it? Oftentimes, too, they're more like psychological, right? I don't believe I could do this, or I don't believe this is possible. So sometimes in our marketing, what we do, we have to help people believe, right? Overcome any obstacles mentally that they might have about getting it. But again, if you think about it, you can't miss one of these elements, right? If you could have demand and the ability to pay for it, but if I don't trust you, no go. If I trust you and I have the means, but I don't want it, no go, right? And we already talked about it. If you have demand and trust but no ability to attain, you can't go. So all three of these elements must be in place. So with whatever we come up with from a marketing perspective, each step of the process, we have to ask ourselves, right? What's the missing ingredient? Do I have demand? If not, I have to create it. Do I have trust? If not, I have to create it. Do I have a perception of attainability? That means either one, I have to overcome that obstacle, or two, you're talking to the wrong people, right? So this is an important dynamic to think about as we're building out our customer journey map. All right, so we've been looking at the customer journey in regards to how things kind of flow, right? Well, another way to think about this is from a pipeline perspective, right? We are building a pipeline. That's what this is. And the greatest amount of opportunity is happening way up here at awareness, right? And there's certain people who are aware of us, certain people who we'll build trust with, certain people will take action, and even less will be advocates. So this is, as we think about what we just talked about, demand, trust, I have to have the ability to transact. Now, loyalty is that thing. That's not a prerequisite. Loyalty is earned. Loyalty is earned out of relationship, right? It's earned out of just serving people and solving problems. Again, I think this is the missing ingredient, because everyone's just trying to get a customer. Everyone's just trying to get a sale. So they do and act in a way that's going to get sales, not brand advocates. Okay, so let's take a look at one more element here. This is, I don't know if you guys have ever read anything by Dan Kennedy, but he's awesome. And it's funny because Dan Kennedy kind of a direct sales guy, and people have this weird thing about being in one camp or the other. When it comes time to influence, when it comes down to sale, I want to make sure that my interactions are direct and engaging. And Dan Kennedy has a thing he calls the marketing triangle, and it's really awesome. And so if you think about it, at each stage of anything that we do, when we're communicating with someone, very similar to our DTA, that's where conversion takes place. But for us to get our message through, for what we do to matter to someone, we have to have this kind of triad, if you will. The first thing that matters is our market, right? Who are we talking to? And so we spend a lot of time figuring out our personas or our best customers and who they are and what they have, right? And then also we think about then, well, we have a message. We are communicating to that person. And typically where it happens a lot is that we have one message for our market and we send that out everywhere. But this is huge. The other ingredient is the media. What this means is where you talk to them. So, perfect example. Most people have a LinkedIn account and a Facebook account. So you have the same market, but if you're saying the same message to them, whether they're on Facebook or LinkedIn, you're probably going to be lost a little bit. Why? It's intent, right? Certain people have a different intent based on where they are. If you're in LinkedIn, you might be in like more of a work mode. You're kind of in that mindset. So some things might not resonate. But likewise, when you're on Facebook, maybe you're not thinking about work, right? Maybe it needs to be more fun and creative and engaging. So you have to change your message to match the media. And so again, think about that, whether it's a blog post, somebody's watching a webinar, somebody is on a social media, opening an email. Does your message match the market and the media connection? And so most people have one message they're saying, and they don't even really know their market, and they're just blasting it off to every single media that exists. That's not going to work. So remember here the triad, and we're going to bring this up and talk about it in just a moment. All right, last kind of power concept to go through here is the idea of commitments, okay? So when we're thinking about commitments, we almost always think about a sale, right? How can I get someone to buy something? But if you think about it, actually, before anyone even gets there, there's a series of micro commitments that happen. It's a commitment for someone to take time out of their day to go to your website. It's even more of a commitment to look at more than one page or read a blog post, right? Those are commitments. So you have to be able to add enough value and serve that person enough to get them to spend their time, to spend their minutes on that. Same thing to give you their email address, right? To actually open an email, watch a video that you send, maybe follow you on social media, and then buy. So before someone buys, they've gone through a series of micro commitments just to get there. And I would say, again, advocacy is even more important. The referring of friends, somebody telling somebody else about you, right? That's the most macro commitment that someone can say is putting their word on the line, sharing your products and services. So you got to think about these commitments. And really, what are these commitments? They're trust. This is the trust continuum. This is how you build trust. And so we have to have things in place that allow people to develop trust, right? That's another thing that we often do incorrectly in marketing is we buy some ads and we drop it on like a sales page or an opt-in form and we just expect people to convert. And they don't. Well, why? Well, because there's a missing ingredient. Do they want what you have to offer? Maybe, right? But if there's enough demand, and think about putting in an email address. Can they put in their email address? Yes, they have the ability to attain that. They can do that. Well, what's the missing ingredient? Trust. There's not enough trust developed in order for them to take that action. So you got to back up and say, how can I continue to increase my trust continuum, the amount of trust that I have? And again, going back to the book Influence, things like consistency, right? Things like reciprocity, like all of these different things are things that are being dropped in the bucket that are increasing demand, increasing trust, increasing the likelihood of a conversion to take place.